Greetings on a snowy Saturday afternoon. The purpose of this video is to get you up to speed on using a list box. It's actually a two-part video. The first part will lay out the design using the GUI template and Qt Designer, and then we'll write code in part 2 of this two-part series. So I'll start Qt Designer up and we can get rolling with this. Okay, there's Qt Designer, and I've already downloaded the GUI template to a folder on my flash drive. So I'm going to go open that up. Again, this is Linux, so it's going to look a little different from your Windows system in the file dialog anyway. Pretty much everything else is the same. So Module 3, List Box Demo, there's our GUI template that I've downloaded from Blackboard. As usual, we've got the exit button there. We can add a few more buttons since we'll have several buttons, as well as the list widget and some labels and things. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit so that we have real estate room for everything that we're going to do. So that's the push button exit, as you can see there in the object inspector. So let's go ahead and put a list box on here, or a list widget. I keep calling it a list box, but that's Microsoft Dialog, Microsoft speak. So the list widget is in the items widget section. Now you may see two list widgets. There's actually a dialog based list widget, and there's a list view. So the ones that we're working with are down here where it says list widget. So make sure you get in the item widget section where it says item based, and we'll drag that over to our dialog. Gonna make it well, right there looks good. Now you'll notice it named it list widget. For this short demo, I don't know that we really need to worry about changing it to something else, but as usual, if you did want to change it, you would triple click here until you get the vertical bar, then type whatever additional name you wanted on there and make sure that you hit enter. If you don't hit enter, what you typed may not be saved even if you click off of it. So word to the wise, again, I know you've heard me say this before, always hit enter after you change an object name here in the object inspector dialog. Okay, so the list widget lets us scroll through a bunch of items. So we can add these items at runtime, or we can add them at design time right now. So I'll go ahead and add a couple items here just so you can see how you could add something at design time. So I've got this list widget selected here. You can see its name is list widget. I'm going to right click on it, and then on the shortcut menu that pops up, I'm going to click on edit items. And so here's where we can add items to show up in the list widget. And those are just textual items. So we'll add a couple folks from the class here. Justin, let's see. Justin. I'll add another one. Josiah. Okay. and I'll add Felicia and hit enter. So now we've got 3 items added. You'll notice when I click OK here that they will actually show in the list widget. There you go. There's our 3 items. So that we can demonstrate how to use this list widget, we're going to add a few more widgets to our dialog. So first thing I'm going to do is put a line edit on there. Now in Microsoft speak, you may remember that a line edit is also known as a text box. In Qt we call them line edits. So I'm going to try to get that selected here and drag it over. So you'll notice I now have an object there that's of the QLineEdit class, and it is named lineEdit. And again, since we're not really doing anything special here, we can go ahead and just leave it named that. If you are going to have more than one, or sometimes it makes sense to name these things what they actually are. So I always like to leave the whatever it defaulted to here so that we know that it is in our code that it's a line edit that we are referring to. So we now have a line edit here on the dialog. I'm going to put a label next to it just so we have something that tells us what we're supposed to do with that. So I drug that label to the dialog, and I'm going to change the text on that label. I'm not using this label in code. It's just to kind of give the person using the program an idea of what it's supposed to have in it. So here I'm going to just put some text, enter an item. Okay. When I click off of it, there's my line edit. You can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move things around too if you want to. And that looks like it's pretty well lined up. You know, you can change the font on these things as well. If you look at the QWidget, the QWidget in the inheritance of the property window here, you'll notice that it's picking fonts from my Linux system. But I've had a couple people contact me in the last week about they would design something and then they'd go to look at it and they'd say it looked really big or something. If you go ahead and set the font to something that's common across all computers. Now obviously Windows computers wouldn't have an Ubuntu font on them, but a common font that you can use most of the time you'll find it on all computers is just Arial. So we can go with Arial and select that, and now you see it's got a 11-point Arial font family picked, and we could go ahead and bold it as well. So I click that, and you see how my text changed here. So now if we doesn't look like I got my font saved there for some reason. I'm going to go back and change that again to Arial, and this time I'm gonna make sure that I hit enter. Okay, so it looks like it may have reset it when I hit bold. I don't know, or am I on a different object? I'm on the whole dialog object now. Never mind. There it is when I clicked it. Okay, so you always make sure what you're clicked on before you look down here in this window, because I was actually on the whole form. And that's okay, you can set the font on the form too, but I don't know that it would propagate itself to every object or widget on that form. Okay, so anyways, we have this laid out now. Let's give ourselves a button, a couple buttons here to do some things with this list widget. We can add things to it, we can edit things that are in there, and we can delete things that are in this list widget. So I'm going to show you how to do all of those things in this two-part series. So let's go ahead and throw these push button widgets on our dialog form so that we don't have to come back here later and worry about it. So I need 3 more push buttons, so I'll just go ahead and drag them all over here, and then we can rename them. There's our last one. So for the first one, this is going to be push button add. So I'm going to triple click. I've got my vertical bar there, and I'm going to type add, and then make sure you hit enter. Okay, just hit enter. So now I need to change the text in that to actually say add. So I'm going to do that. And by the way, you can give keyboard shortcuts on these forms or dialogues and buttons just like you could in the Microsoft world. If you put an ampersand in front of that letter, it will allow the person to not have to use a mouse to click that button. You can, if I put, let's just go ahead and do this, ampersand ADD, okay? When I hit enter, notice that it put an underscore under the A. So that's a keyboard shortcut. If I wanted to click that button without having to click it with the mouse, I could hold down the Alt key and hit an A, and it would click that button for us. So I'm trying to make this button about the same size as the exit button. Okay, so I have push button add. Now let's make a push button edit here. Triple click, edit, enter. Make sure you hit enter. Push button edit. Let's change the text on it. We can give ourselves a keyboard shortcut for this too. Ampersand EDIT, enter. So now we have an edit button. I'm resizing it here. So now I have an edit button. And lastly, we want a delete button. So triple click here in the object inspector, backspace, and this is delete. Hit enter. So now I have a push button delete, and I've resized it, and I'm going to change the text on that to an ampersand, giving ourselves a keyboard shortcut. Okay, we have a delete button now. Push button delete. Okay, resize these things, drag them over where they look kind of consistent. Okay, so we've just about laid this form out. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I probably should have saved it a long time ago. This is going to be our list widget demo is what we'll call this. List widget, WIDGET, demo. Okay, listWidget demo.ui. Okay, that's saved. We need one more thing on this form so that we can demonstrate some things. We need a label that we can use in code. Now remember, if we're going to refer to the label in code, we always give it a name. So here's our label widget right there. Going to drag that to our form. You can see that I have a label 2 now. And I'm going to go ahead and change some properties in the frame inheritance for that Q label. So right here where it says frame shape, I'm going to change that to a win panel. And for the frame shadow, I'm going to make it sunken. And you can see what it looks like over here now. It's got our sunken look to it. I made it a little bit bigger. There it is. Let's go ahead and set the style sheet on it too, where it has a white background. So the style sheet is actually part of the Q widget that the label inherits. So here in the style sheet, I'm going to click the three dots. I'm going to add the background color style. And then right here, now your dialog on Windows may look slightly different in the select color, but my white is actually right here where I'm moving the mouse pointer. So I'm going to click that and hit select. And white is an RGB value of 255, 255, 255. Notice that it's the background color. And when I click OK, you'll see that it now has a white background. So what's left for us to do here is we need to change the name of this. We can triple click there and call it label item. Hit enter. Make sure you hit enter so that this gets saved. And then let's take the text out of it. We've got it renamed and we've got its property changed. So there it is. I'm going to save my ListWidget demo, and then just to check behind ourselves and make sure that all these names got saved here in the Object Inspector window, I'm going to close this and I'm going to reopen it and just make sure that all those names are there. So you'll notice the last one we changed was label item. We have a lineEdit, we have a list widget, push button add, push button delete, push button edit, and a push button exit. So when you're doing your programs, it's always a good idea after you've saved everything, even if you were real careful and you hit enter on all these, it's always good to kind of just close that and then come back in and open it up again and make sure that everything is there so that you're not beating your head against the wall trying to figure out why Python is telling you something doesn't exist when you know you said it. Okay, so that's the end of this design layout video. Part 1 of demonstrating using the ListWidget demo. We'll go to writing Python code in the next video. So thanks for listening on this snowy Saturday afternoon. So we'll see you in part 2.